Hello there. I am Danny Gregory, and welcome to the drawing party. Today is Thursday, March 26th. It's 9 o'clock here in Phoenix, and I see a bunch of people have shown up from all over. Angela in Miami, and Cheryl in Seattle, Pascal in Paris, Julie in Tucson, not far from where I am, and Kalyani, Polly, various other people. So that's fantastic. I'm glad that you're going to draw with me. Today, all we're going to need is a pen and some paper, or whatever you want to draw with. But it's basically straight on drawing stuff today. Nothing fancy, no gizmos, no brushes, watercolors, or anything like that. In fact, I'm not even going to play you a video. I'm going to just go old school and just tell you what I think we should do together on my own from the cuff. So I start each day by, I don't know, particularly these days, uh, looking at my phone and seeing what new surprises await. And after I skim over the headlines, I go and look for things that might be nicer to experience. That might give me some nice perspective on the day. And I got an email that was quite nice from, it's a newsletter actually that I subscribe to, that is called the Brass Ring Daily, which is it's a newsletter from a woman named Kara Kutrutzla, who is a writer. She's a writer in, I think, in New York, and she generally writes musical theater, I think, but she also writes this daily newsletter that's about um, writing. And she talks in today's newsletter about all of her big plans that she had for this year and how she was going to do a bunch of writing some musicals. She was going to write a play. She was going to write a TV pilot. And she was going to scale back on her kind of freelance work and work for other people to really concentrate on her projects. And what happened was that basically everything got canceled. The festival that she was going to participate in, that she'd been accepted in, was canceled. The workshop that she was going to run was put on hold, and all of the writing assignments that she had managed to gin up were being dissolved. So she said, oh, well, I guess I'll quickly go and find work. And so she started desperately writing to people who she got freelance work from in the past, and was just scrounging around desperately to to have a sense of stability, really, to know that, okay, to hell with my big plans. I've got to be practical, and I've got to um, you know make money, but also just have um, a plan, a real plan, a real world plan, as opposed to this fantasy that she had set for herself about being, embracing her own creativity and doing what she thought was right. And then she writes, stability is nice. Feeling useful and like you have something to contribute is nice. But she says, yet I'm beginning to ask myself, why not keep up that big plan now? Yes, there are distractions. Yes, it's hard to focus. No, I don't have all the answers. But she says, I've decided, I doubt that I'm going to write 10 pages a day or stick to the same timelines as before. And I'm probably not going to write my own King Lear. But this isn't about increasing productivity, but rather about renewing my commitment. In the absence of all rules and in the midst of radical change, there lies the possibility to dig even deeper, to carve out your tunnel, to keep up what you know to be true, to not stop creating, not now, not never. And when the lights turn back on, we'll be there. Who's with me? She says. So, in other words, we can't give up everything that we've achieved. We can't give up the plans that we had given ourselves. We have to sort of stick to as much of it as we possibly can. And I remember reading a couple weeks ago that Shakespeare wrote, I believe it was Othello, and I'm trying to remember what the other play was. It might have been King Lear, but I don't think it was. Othello and Macbeth. Othello and Macbeth during a plague in London. In Shakespeare's time, the plague was still around, and periodically people were driven into the exact situation we're in. We forget that this is something that's been going on for as long as people have been around, and people have survived it and continued. So I just want to remind myself, probably more than anybody, that this is going to end, and when it does, let's not look at this as like a blank spot. Let's look at it as an opportunity to do at the very least to do a drawing every day. So here's what I wanted to do in terms of drawing this morning. I think the thing that we would all like when it comes to drawing is to have certain sense of fluidness with our drawing, conviction, confidence that our line is bold and strong, that we're not getting distracted by details, right? A lot of times when you do a drawing, you can get overwhelmed by all there is to draw in the thing that you're looking at. So how do you transcend that and just see the essentials? That's what this exercise that we're going to do today is. And it is about being reductive, meaning let's start in a detailed way, and then let's figure out how we're going to break things down into their essentials, the things that are most important. Think about a caricature. When you see a good caricature, it doesn't look like a photographic portrait, right? It looks like the person, but yet they've been reduced to these elements. You recognize the movie star or the singer or the football player. You recognize them from just these few lines. So how do you get to that? Reductive. So that's what we're going to try and do today, okay? So let's begin by my transferring to the old trusty iPad. We don't need this anymore. We've finished with that. And we probably don't need this anymore either. But we do need this, my page. My page. Birds are very active this morning out here in Phoenix. It's an overcast day. It's often overcast in the morning here. Okay, so you've got your pen and your paper. Again, it doesn't really matter what implement you're going to use. It doesn't really matter what you're going to be drawing either. But we're going to pick an object. I'm going to pick a car. If you don't like drawing cars, that's fine. Just pick up some other thing. It doesn't really matter what this object is, okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to spend 4 minutes drawing this thing. And for me, well, we're going to spend 5 minutes. 5 minutes drawing it, and we're going to draw the entire thing. Okay, so each of the assignments that I'm going to give you today, we're going to draw the entire thing in the time allotted. Okay, so don't just draw half of it, do the whole thing. And if you don't want to draw a car and you want to draw an object that's in front of you, or you want to draw some other thing that you come up with from your imagination, it's totally fine. This is your time to do with what you will. But the main thing is to spend 5 solid minutes drawing whatever the thing is. Okay, so I'm going to draw a car just because why not? So and I set a little timer for 5 minutes, and hopefully when it goes off, we will all hear it. But let's see, maybe we won't. Well, I'll hear it. Okay, so I'm just going to draw a car, and I'm not going to talk very much while I'm doing this because I would rather concentrate than jaw with you right now. sure what kind of car this is. Looks like it's probably an oldish one. All right, we've got about a minute and a half left. All right, done. All right, so that was our 5-minute timer. On this car, again, not sure what kind of car it is. It just sort of drove out of my imagination, but there you go. It is what it is. All right, so here's the thing about this a 5-minute drawing is I spent a fair amount of time looking at details, filling in stuff, and adding some shading and also going back and refining lines, going back, and so in the end, this car, it has, it's a reasonable drawing of some unknown car. It looks sort of like I don't know, like one of those Eastern European cars from the 60s or 70s. Anyway, so, all right, so you've had a chance to do that. And for those of you who are just joining me, here's what we're doing. We're drawing timed. We're doing a drawing of an object, and we've drawn it in 5 minutes. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to draw it again. But this time, instead of having 5 minutes, we're going to have 3 minutes on the timer. Oops, this page bled through a bit, didn't it? All right, so we're going to do 3-minute drawing. Same thing, same object, but now you only have half the time, or 60% of the time. Okay? So let's get ready to do that. And if you're joining me late, just start with the 3-minute one if you'd like. Okay, here we go. And timer started. Go. So again, just draw a car. Doesn't have to be the same car. Could be. But just see what you can do in this time allotted, which is a bit different. Again, I'm going to shut my mouth so I can focus on drawing this. All right, you've got a minute and a half left.
Ramon, I just thought of something I forgot to ask. Tomorrow is the first day that student employees will pick up checks. I have at least one that has that we need to what's the process? Mm. Great, thank you.
4 seconds to go. And
The only one that I know will just check.
all right, we're done. That was fun. Moving quickly. I see that by the lack of comments that you're probably drawing instead of commenting, which is great. That's the way we want it. Okay, now 1 minute. Can you do it? And then I need a sip of coffee for this. 1 minute. Go. Getting a little flummoxed here by the speed of my pen. Right, but I can do it. I can do it. All right, that was a minute. We're going to compare all these drawings when we're done and see. But now, 30 seconds. See what happens in 30 seconds. Setting the timer. Loosening up. And go. All right, we got it, Duck. Okay, so the goal, as I said, is to try and get the whole thing drawn. Don't just draw part of it, try and get the whole thing drawn. And finally, okay, wait, we're not final though, we're not done. We're now going to try 20 seconds. Go. All right. Are you ready for 10 seconds? 10 seconds. Whatever it is you're going to draw, you're going to do it in 10 seconds. All right. Hope my pen doesn't run out of ink. Seems like it's about to do that. I'm going to switch pens quickly. I can't have that happening. Let's make sure this is working. It is. All right. Here we go. 10 seconds. Let me mark. Get set. Go. And finally, 5 seconds. On your mark, pens down on the paper, go. That was pretty great. That was like wind sprints. So I'm going to go and show you these in reverse order. So there's the 5. There's the 10. There's the, no, yeah, that was the 10, 5, 10. This is the 20. This is the 30. This is 1 minute. This is 3 minutes. And this is 5 minutes. What do you think? 5, 3. Oops, I got 2. Yeah, that's good. 1. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. 5 seconds. All right, so what's the point of all this? Point is that it still looks like a car. Right? It still looks like a car in 5 seconds. Now, if I had said to you at the very beginning of this exercise, draw a car in 5 seconds, it might have been a bit harder. But what this shows is that when you reduce, when you reduce this to this, you see like what are the things that matter, right? What are the things that matter? Well, clearly the wheels, the general overall shape, and the windshield. That tells you it's a car. Like it's a car. But in some ways, it has more personality than this. I don't know. I don't know that I like this 5 second drawing the best. I kind of like that one. But I have to say, I think this might be my favorite. This might be my favorite. Kind of looks like a pig, but it feels like a car, like, like driving right at you, right? It looks in motion because of the angle. It's undoubtedly what it is, and but it's down to the essentials. And I think so often when we do a drawing like this one, we just get finicky, and we also move slowly, which is sometimes good. I mean, I think it's absolutely no question that when you're doing a contemplative drawing and you really want to study it, you should slow down as much as you possibly can. I absolutely feel that way because then you're really observing and being careful. But there's a price that you pay, which is it can feel constrained, it can feel labored, particularly if you spend too long on it. And this is the thing that I've been trying to sort of work through in my mind, which is um, what happens when you have a drawing that feels overworked? Like, what is really happening in that drawing? What is the process? And my theory, I think, is that when I first start out to draw, I'm fresh, my powers of observation are strong. But over time, and in my case, 10 or 15 minutes is time, I start to get tired. It's very intensive staring and recording. And when I start to get tired, my mind wanders more. It's like trying to meditate for, hours, like some monks are capable of doing. I'm not. So after 15 minutes, I start to get tired and my mind wanders. My observation is not as clear. My recording is not as clear. I can also get lost. You not see the forest for the trees, right? So you can get so obsessive about details that you don't see how the whole thing comes together. And I feel like when I look at that, or when I look at say that, it feels like the whole has been considered more than the details. And you could then take this fast observation and you could say, well, there's a lot of things that are wrong about this drawing. It looks really too big. It looks like it's like a low rider, which I kind of like. Looks like, but there's also things that are interesting about it, which is a lot of times when you draw a car, for instance, cars are surprisingly difficult to draw because we think we know about them. We know what they look like. And yet, from certain angles, we don't. Like, it's really easy to um, not know how long to make the hood or not know how long to make the top of the car because the top of the car is something we don't really think that much about, right? You notice the hood, you notice the radiator, you notice the windshield, you notice the wheels. But how big is the roof? Well, the roof covers the entire car. It's actually quite big, but when it's foreshortened, it may not be. So there's a lot of things that we think we know about cars, and when we sit down to draw them, we don't. We don't know necessarily what a tire looks like at an angle. We don't know what the front of the tire looks like. There's a lot of things you need to sit and observe. But in doing that observation, you can get overwhelmed by it. And sitting down and drawing a tire is something that I'm still not that great at. I have more of a sense of it, but it took me a long time. I would look at it and then I would try and draw it and I'd say that couldn't be right, but it is. So the point of this whole exercise is to spend time and to think about time as a factor in your drawing. What takes too long, particularly when you're first starting out and you're riding the brake, as it were, the whole time. You are you're hesitant and you're anxious, and so you uh, draw in a hesitating way, or you clutch the pen too hard, and you don't have the fluidity, the smoothness that comes with confidence, the ability to look at something and to really observe it. So you want to play these kinds of games with yourself. I mean, this is an exercise. You could do this every day. Do it with different objects. As you see, it doesn't matter what it is you're drawing. The point is being reductive. And when you're reductive, then you start to understand what the essentials are. So again, think of it as a caricature. It doesn't necessarily mean you want to draw caricatures, but if you can draw a caricature, then you can draw. Often you can also draw a much more complex likeness, much more um, realistic likeness, because you know what is it that makes that person themselves. What is it? Is it the shape of their nose? Because caricatures will often exaggerate things, right? So like, say, oh, he has kind of a large nose, so let me make it really large. His ears kind of stick out, so let me make him look like an elephant. So we exaggerate those things because we say, when you look at this person, these are the things you notice. These are the things you notice, right? But those aren't necessarily the things that you see. So if you draw a portrait of somebody and you exaggerate the things that you notice, the person who you drew might say, really, that's what you notice about me, that I have big ears? That doesn't really look like me. I don't notice my big ears. So play around with time, play around with also this this act of drawing and redrawing, doing a drawing, putting aside, drawing it again, doing something to change it up. You could do this whole process and change your pen every time. You could do it with, you could draw. I mean, this is something that maybe we'll do another day. Maybe I've done this with some of you before, where we do a drawing in a color, red, and then we do the drawing again on top of it in another color, blue. This works really well when you're doing what we call a blind contour drawing. So you look at something, you draw without taking your pen off the page, but without looking at the page either. Do it once in red, do it again in blue, do it again in yellow, and you'll see these different ways that you're seeing layered on top of each other. So again, our goal is not to sit down and draw a photographic car. Our goal is to see better, to understand better, to understand how our minds work, to get more out of the observations we're getting out of the world, and also to have this moment. That's what's so important, is to have this moment where we are here present now. I've talked about that in the last few days, about the importance of the meditative aspect of drawing, which allows us to shut down our brains, shut down the critical part of it, shut down the jabbering monkey voice in our head, the one that also is making us terrified about what's going to happen, and instead say, I'm going to be here now. I'm going to be just me and this drawing, and I'm going to give myself a break. I'm going to give myself a pause in the madness to just be. That's really essential to our health and to our managing our stress, is to be able to stop and be. And drawing is a great way of doing that. So think about that. Think about what you can do to continue this practice. Because going back to that piece that I read at the beginning, what are the things that you can get out of this time that we're living through? Not just surviving through it. We don't want to reduce ourselves back to being animals, right? We don't want to reduce ourselves to being cringing with fear and worry about the future. We want to say, I'm here every day and I want to make the most of this day. So, given the circumstances that I'm under, given the fact that I have a couple of fountain pens, some uniballs, and a few random colored pencils that I've managed to scrounge around the house, what can I do with them? And what kind of goals can I set up for myself, so that when this is over, I can say, that time, it changed me for the better. For the better. It allowed me to focus on what matters, what is essential. And the time that we have here, how are we going to use it? Not just this time, not just the time until normalcy, quote unquote, returns, but also the rest of our time, the rest of our days. How are we going to make sure that we don't have regrets about the time, the way that we use them? And I think setting goals for ourselves, setting projects, and then sticking to them, even if the world changes, is something to consider. Doesn't mean that you have to be dogged about them. We have to be creative. We have to use our creativity for what it's intended for, which is to solve problems. And solving problems doesn't mean solving this crisis in the world necessarily, or just that, but also solving the problems of our own selves, our own stress, our own sense of purposelessness and uselessness and lack of control, and to say, how can I overcome this? Like, what are ideas that I can make for myself? I talked about this last week, the idea of sitting down every day and saying, um, how many ideas can I come up with today? Just for the sake of having ideas, of keeping the old mechanism lubricated and active. You know, there's a lot of possibility. So, um, you know, it's okay to spend a little bit of time each day breaking down and freaking out, but then get back to it, whatever it is. And in some ways, count ourselves lucky for having this time, this opportunity to think. I want to read you one other thing. I don't know if you've seen this. This is a thing that somebody sent me um, about. Actually, my wife found it. Somebody had sent it to her, um, and it was something that was allegedly written by Bill Gates. Although I have to say, I don't think it actually was, because there are a couple things that he says in here that I can't imagine Bill Gates would say. But one of the things that and I can post this somewhere if you haven't already seen it. But one of the things he says is these are the things that we can learn from this. And he says, it is reminding us that our true work is not our job. That's what we do, not what we were created to do. Our true work is to look after each other, to protect each other, and to be of benefit to one another. It is reminding us to keep our egos in check. It's reminding us that no matter how great we think we are, or how great others think we are, a virus can bring our world to a standstill. It's reminding us that the power of free will is in our hands. We can choose to cooperate and help each other, to share, to give, to help, and to support each other, or we can choose to be selfish, to hoard, to look after only our own selves. Indeed, it's difficulties that bring out our true colors. It's reminding us that we can be patient or we can panic. We can either understand that this type of situation has happened many times before in history and will pass, or we can panic and see it as the end of the world and consequently cause ourselves more harm than good. And finally, it's reminding us that this can be either an end or a new beginning. This can be a time of reflection and understanding where we learn from our mistakes, or it can be the start of a cycle which will continue until we finally learn the lesson we're meant to. There's a bunch of other things in it which are quite nice. And I would say look for that. Look for this piece. Maybe I'll post it somewhere so you can find it. Again, I doubt it was written by Bill Gates, but it still seems to sort of bring into relief what it is we're going through. Relief being the operative word. So this is, again, time for being contemplative and recognizing that this moment of change is a possible time for growth as well. All right, I'm not sure why I went down this particular tunnel today, but maybe it's just drawing colors. I love colors. I love to draw them, and I've drawn them since I was a kid. They remind me of being like 7. I used to love to draw cars too. So thanks, guys, for being with me today. I'll see you tomorrow, Friday, and we'll do something else. I have another idea for what we're going to do tomorrow. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Show up, bring a pen and paper or a sketchbook, and we'll do something. Okay? See you then. Thanks for joining me today. Oh, if you want to share what you did today and so I can see it, put down hashtag SBS Drawing Party on it somewhere. Post it on Instagram or Facebook, or I don't know. I liked what somebody said yesterday, that they were posting work in the window of their house so that passersby could see it. They were being a quote unquote artist in residence. That idea has really stuck with me. I think it's really great. So if you want to just post it in your front window, put it on the fridge, you can, of course, as you wish. Thanks very much. See you again next time. Bye bye.